Good evening. This is Tuesday, December 15th, 2015. This is the regular meeting of the Clay Township Board, 6 p.m. in the community room at the John Hensel Government Center. The first order of business would be to have the Pledge of Allegiance. Sorry. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The next order of business is to have an add-on, and Doug has asked that we add something on. I need a motion to that effect, please.
So moved.
Seconded.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same way? It's approved. All right, the next order of business is the approval of minutes from the November 24th meeting. May I have a motion, please? Is there any discussion on the minutes? Any add-ons, anything?
No.
Bob? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Public comments? Seeing that there's no one here, unless you would like to make a comment during this time, you're very welcome to. All right, thank you. Action items. Resolution number 2015-12-15-01, closing of the Farley Cemetery Fund, number 2120, parentheses 9502, and transferring of cash balance. Doug?
Yeah, earlier this year during the conference, there's a legislature enacted a new law where on our pioneer cemeteries, we can actually, if you do some other work to make sure nobody's buried in them, you can actually sell those plots and stuff. But they also talked about where, and maybe Brian will talk a little bit more, but where the funds right now that we receive from Farley goes into a Farley fund we have. And what I'd like to do, since we pay everything to mow that, take care of that cemeteries, and like the other three, we take it out of the general fund. So instead of having another fund out there, I would just like to take the $19,000 and some odd dollars out of that, close that fund, and move it over into the general fund. If you have any specific questions, I'll be happy to ask you, or the attorney, I'm sure, would, if you have any.
Any questions?
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The next order of business is the 2015 encumbrances. Doug?
Yeah, what you've got in front of you is there's actually two funds. One is the fire fund, the 1111. I'm transferring the $750,000, which I had for the fire contract this year. And since we haven't signed it, or we haven't approved it, and the city hasn't approved it yet, well, we have one time, and it's going to come back up in this meeting. But anyway, I went ahead and encumbered that. If I, am able to pay for it this year, I will. Otherwise, it's encumbered into next year. Same goes with the parks. And on these encumbrances, you've got to have POs or contracts before you can actually encumber it. And so what they did, the parks in the 1215 fund, and I gave you a list of all of the POs for the Parks Department, which totals $1.2 million. And actually, I better say the whole amount, $1,242,726.33 for the non-reverting park fund, 1215. And then for the fire fund, 1111, category 3, other services and charges, $750,000 for that, for the fire contract.
May I have a motion to accept that, please?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any discussion on it? Matt? Paul?
No.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Fire contract changes. Resolution number 2015-12-15-02. Counselor?
Yes, thank you. After last month's meeting, I transmitted the contract that was adopted at the last meeting. which did not include the requested COET funds in the amount of $352,816, the proposed transfer to the township. I conveyed the sense of the board to the mayor and city legal that because of the $400,000 invested in the public safety project, the board felt that it was not appropriate to make that transfer. The mayor reached out, and with the exception of one email he might have wished he hadn't sent, it wasn't terrible. All very cordial, and the request was to come back to the board. Honestly, the explanation was, and it was a fair one, in addition to what you've seen in the paper about the end-of-year city finances, was that had there been a discussion about this 6 months ago, they wouldn't have been counting on the money. And with the tight budget that they had here at the end of the year, they were counting on it. So the trustee indicated that he was going to come back to the board and ask for your reconsideration of the fire contract with the inclusion of the language that was in the alternate fire contract that you had before you last time. Remember, you had two. And it's identical in all other respects, with the exception of the inclusion of language at the end of section 13 that says, in addition to the foregoing payments on or before December 31, 2015, the township shall distribute to the city from county option income taxes available to the township a one-time payment in the amount of $352,816. And then we added the sentence that was not part of the contract in the past. The city and the township acknowledge that county option income tax distributions from the township to the city related to the 2012 Southwest Clay annexation by the city will be discontinued after the 2016 fire contract. That means one more time, which was the original discussions that happened between persons not including me. So that is the proposal. Because you've adopted one, to eliminate future confusion in the township's records, I actually prepared a resolution that indicated you adopted the first contract this is all for your consideration, adopted the first contract, you've been asked to approve a revised contract, and you approve the revised contract. It's a policy decision entirely up to you all, and the trustee had discussions, I know, as well with you and with the mayor. I don't know if he has anything to add, but that was the proposal, that we would bring that back to you tonight. The Board of Public Works is the party that approves this contract on behalf of the city, and if we've indicated to the city, if the township board is agreeable to approving the revised contract, the signed contract will be presented at the Board of Works meeting tomorrow by an associate, Tom DeRue, who's here occasionally. I cannot be there myself tomorrow.
Before we have discussion, shall we put it in as a motion?
If you would like, that'd be
All right,
great.
yes, I would like to do
So moved.
Second?
Second, all right, discussion, please, Paul?
Isn't it true, Doug, that somebody, be that the mayor or his henchman, Mr. Coonrod, threatened to break the fire contract and force us to, quote-unquote, provide fire protection on our own?
It was discussed that if the city, if the township didn't give them the COET, then they would consider turning the unincorporated part of the township for fire protection over to the township, and we would establish our own fire protection.
Mm-hmm. Which obviously is financially reckless. We can't do that. It would cost us a lot more to do that than what would be and is included in the contract for the city and the township combined. I just wanted to get that on the table, that was
Do you mind
mentioned.
if I add something?
No, go ahead.
Do you
Go ahead.
mind if I add? Honestly, I saw the email, and that was the one I was referring to, that the mayor actually, we had a phone conversation the next day, And he said, now, he expressed a little, he said he probably shouldn't have sent that, all right? And he was, we're all under pressure, right? And I didn't, honestly though, I didn't consider it a threat. When I read it, it said, perhaps if y'all don't want to work together on this, you should just establish your own fire department and, protect fire for whatever percent of the township is left outside the city limits. So I didn't want it to be stated that there was some big threat. It was more sarcastic. Said perhaps we just ought to discontinue the fire contract. You all could just worry about the home place. Would you think that's fair?
Yeah, because
I can't pull it up.
He said maybe it's time for us now to look into separating on the fire.
Well,
So
regardless of...
your point's the same, but
Yeah.
it wasn't as bad.
I guess my point is, if that really was a consideration all along, and if the city was that serious about making that veiled threat as non-threatening or as threatening as it might have been, why did we even consider this option to begin with? My point is, it didn't sound like we had much of a leg to stand on to begin with, because the city basically just bluffed. The city called our bluff, and now here we are back covering this same ground we covered 3 weeks ago with little or no recourse. I mean, it seems to me that this never should have been brought up as a viable option. Hey, don't worry about it. Don't pay the city. They won't mind, and we'll move on down the road. They do mind. They were counting on the money. I guess we should have known better to begin with, and I feel like we got some bad advice. And so now I think we kind of look like idiots, and I think that the city, in light of their financial situation, looks desperate. We have no recourse, and so I think this is kind of a moot point, and I don't know what leg to stand on we have.
Matt?
I guess the only part that kind of bothers me, or does bother me, is that I would venture to say that we're leaving out the fact that we're funding $6.5 million in fire projects. And, I mean, logically, if you put this black and white in front of any sane person, I feel like, we've made up our end of this. I mean, obviously, it's when it gets down to brass tacks and language and contracts, that changes. What bothers me a little bit, I'm glad to hear you say, Brian, that you've spoken with the mayor, because otherwise it's been a legislative body, an executive body, and their counselor and an accountant dealing with Coonrod, which I find entirely unacceptable, because I would venture to say there is nobody on the city council that has any idea what's going on, and if I spoke before that council, there is no way on record they would say, we're going to, because I honestly, one thing, we can just stop construction, period. Leave them with holding the bag on finishing these fire stations. I mean, I don't have any problem doing it. And I don't think anybody on the council would want that to happen. And this was never personal. I would like to know, Brian, what happened to the contract language at the very end of both original contracts you gave us that says if we don't reach an agreement, it just goes back to the 2014 pay 15.
I believe that's still there. I didn't change that.
So I don't know why. I guess I don't understand then. Fine, we don't sign it, and we just carry on the 2014 contract.
Let me answer this, because the problem is we're talking about lives out here. We're talking about Clay Township, the people of Clay Township. And from my standpoint, that's one thing I think about a lot. And so even though we're talking about $352,000 this year in this COIT, I totally understand where you guys are coming from, and I understand where the city's coming from, where they think that that's their money and they should get it. But I will tell you, we need to do whatever it takes to complete these projects through this bonding and do whatever we need to with this COIT. Because I do not want to put the people in Home Place, this 1.5 square mile that's in the unincorporated part, in a bad situation to where we end up taxing them for fire protection galore.
Doug, that's not even a consideration. That's never going to happen. That's not even on the table here. We're gonna do what we set out to do, and we're going to do the right thing. But I feel like the city is getting away with this because we have no recourse, and I don't think that there's any alternative to doing it because none of us want to put anybody in harm's way, increase taxes unnecessarily, get into a spat, a spitting match with the city over this money. Technically, it is theirs. The contract language was there all along. My point is, I really feel like we got some bad advice 3 weeks ago. We should have said, hey, you got to do it, let's move on. We thought we might be able to coerce or suggest to the city that, you got to get some skin in the game. We got $6 million in this, and we'd like for you to get $352,000 in it.
Well, I think we're moving away from my original question. Why can't we just go back based on the contract language? If no agreement signed, why doesn't it just revert back to 2014 and we move on?
It does revert back to 2014. We did the calculation last time.
I don't remember what that was.
I may pull it up. It doesn't equal the 352,000.
It's more like 400.
It's still
Something.
less. It's still less than the total of the 352. And I did the calculation and it was in a transmission to the city, so I could probably pull that up. But it's not the same as
It was
the
more.
300. It was less than the $352,000. It
was more.
Well,
The last
If it
4
was less,
years,
then why
the
would we-
last 4 years we've
Why
been
would it be a
paying this,
problem?
and I've got it in my file.
Doesn't it
back
keep
there.
going down year after year?
No, it fluctuated because it was all in the COIT, amount that we received from COIT. So it did fluctuate some, but I think, was it last year was a large sum of COIT, like 562,000 or something, I believe. I mean,
Information here.
Yeah, if I could just chime in, I think when the discussion point 3 weeks ago.
You need to
can
be
you
on the
go- yeah,
mic,
I was gonna say,
please.
would you go to the,
Good evening, Angie Stino, Cor Horwath. The discussion 3 weeks ago, I think, really focused on the language in the contract. I think we all agreed with the language where it says it reverts back to the prior year contract for the contract amount. I think that was something that made sense to everyone. I think where the point of clarity came in, and what we were discussing and really looking to understand was that additional language where it said it reverts back to the prior contract. Did that include the one-time payment or not? That was my understanding, and that's where I think we looked at it and said, no, if anyone would interpret that information, the contract, it would apply to the contract based on the assessed valuation calculation. That contract calculation has always been the same. It's, strictly the percentage. I think that all made sense. I think the point of where there was discussion amongst this group was whether that one clause would still apply. And I think it was our understanding that it would not apply because of how it was written. So I think the discussion, what we need to look at, if that's the case, and if that's still the interpretation, I think, of council, then we just need to compare then to see what the contract amount was based on the calculation for the calendar year 14 to where we are 15. So I don't know if Trustee Callahan would want to make sure and just go grab that information, just so we have that in front of you, so you have the full picture. I don't have last year's calculation with me. Then we can look at that, and if that's the same interpretation that council's taking regarding that clause. If that would be helpful, I'm just offering that up.
I think it would be helpful. The biggest problem that we're trying really hard to do this the right way, and if we do it the wrong way, we're front page news, because then we're in a fight with the city, and that's not what we're trying to be. We're trying to be good stewards of the money that we're trying to take care of, for heaven's sakes.
And the other thing I'm not aware of, and probably ought to ask this when Doug is here, I don't know where the agreement, we're kind of in and out on this fire contract. Sometimes the fire contract transpires without our involvement at all. It's just internally recalculated, presented to the board, and off it goes. I don't know where the agreement on the 2012 annexation came from, if that was what that understanding was. This all has to do with the COIT and the 2012, making an adjustment for the 2012 annexation. And I don't know who made that agreement, if that was the trustee and the mayor, if the legislative bodies were involved in that, but it's clear from the city's communication with us that they were counting on that continued agreement, and no one told them that there was going to be for whatever reason, that there was consideration of an offset because of the public safety project investment. They didn't ask for that. Public safety project investment, they might have privately, I don't know, have to ask the trustee.
Well, I'm not saying, what Doug's saying about people's lives, the 2 fire stations will be done, but the training center does not save lives. And Brian, I don't want to make a fight out of this, but I think it's worth, if it's warranted, it's warranted, and it bothers me that the other legislative body has no idea what's going on.
And who keeps them informed?
Well, I'm certainly not in charge of that, so
And I
I'm not
just
sure
can't, I
anyone is.
can't imagine if we spoke in front of the city council and explained this idiocracy that's happening over $352,000, that they would find that when we're building 3 fire stations, and they're not gonna, but let's say we want to move on with cooler minds. I still won't sign what you got in front of me. They do have, I understand they budgeted, they need that money this year, fine. But now they're well aware of next year. I know they've already done their budgeting workshops in August, but there's no reason that we pay this for another year. So I don't know if they would compromise, if you went back to them and said, listen, the board's going to pay you the $352,000 for this year, or even more if that satisfies the compromise, but then that's it. And next year, we can anticipate, let's say it's going to be $350 again next year, we write them a check for $400,000 and say, listen, you guys are in a pinch, here you go, but we're done. And I think that's
But it has to be done legally.
right.
Yeah, that was language that Doug asked me to put in here, and apparently that's reflective of the original agreement between whomever.
Which I've never seen. But
On the fate. I don't know that it's in writing, honestly. I think it was a discussion. Doug's going to have more information on that than I do.
A discussion between Doug and the city?
I don't know.
Oh,
I don't know. Just this agreement popped up.
Every interlocal we have, it seems like we sneeze, we breach it. So my question is, how does the city get away with saying, we'll just cancel it? Or, what? I don't.
No, I don't think anybody said cancel the agreement. The comment was perhaps it's time for the township and the city to split on fire protection and for the township to be concerned about home place. So, and again, I will tell you, the mayor, it wasn't a mean email, it was just comment, and he told me when we talked on the phone the next day.
I don't blame, I might have made the
He's
same
at-
comment in his position, but
Yeah.
we own assets. I understand.
we own trucks.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
fine, we take it all back.
Right.
And we retain the property of the things we're building on because we bonded it. So our building corporation
I
owns
don't know
those
that you
pro-
retain the property,
I
but,
can't think that we do it.
yeah.
Well, I think it's an interesting discussion. It's somewhat moot because I think it would become a very unwieldy process to try to separate the two in terms of fire protection.
But if we have all the trucks, we don't need all the trucks. We sell the trucks, and I'm not worried about the scare tactic of taxes going up. There's ways around that. That doesn't bother me at all. Now, I'm not saying I want to do that. I don't want to get in that argument. But at the same point, I don't think that it's a threat that we should be scared of.
No, but I think it's.
If it was, and I don't think the mayor mentioned it as a threat.
Just one more comment. I'm not a friend of the dueling contract adoption. We did it with the park interlocal a couple of times. I wasn't a fan of that. I really wasn't a fan of the, removing without knowledge and sending, and then they can do something different. I just think there needs to be an agreement up front. Everybody knows what it is, and it gets signed, and then we don't find ourselves in this position.
I don't disagree with that, and I think these need to be discussed as a joint body, not independently.
I was just going to suggest
That's a
that.
very good idea. That's a very good idea. Maybe it would be a good idea to educate the new council on what they're getting as a result of our,
They may not know we're building 3 fire stations.
some
Two
do,
fire-
some do. I would hope. I just wonder if it makes sense to fish and, cut bait and move on and,
Well, I think it does for this year, but I'm not going to give up the fight for next year's money because we need that money.
Yeah.
or is there a logical time limit on this?
Well, this has to be signed by the end of the year, I assume. They need the money by the end of 2015.
Let me.
Their last Board of Works meeting is tomorrow. Your last meeting of the year is tonight.
But let-
So, everybody could call a special meeting, but
But let me add something here. Time has run out for us to do an additional appropriation. You had to have it in, today was the last day for DLGF. So the only thing I can pay them is the $750,000 that I'm encumbering tonight, is all I can pay them this year. They're gonna have to wait till January 1 to get the code.
Well, they'll understand that.
Because I mean, that's just kind of the way it is. You can only have till the 15th and to do your encumbrances, or your additional appropriations. So today was the last day. And don't get me wrong, I've got the money in there, but I'm just saying that, since we weren't going to give it to them, from my standpoint, and I want you to understand something. When I talk to Kirk Coonrod, and he's that way with me when he talks to me, we know, or I know, and I told him this, that you folks make, even if I said yes, you folks make the decision, not me. So when he's running around saying, well, the township said they're going to give us this, look, I told him that. And he does the same thing with me, with the mayor. Doug, the mayor makes that decision. I said, I understand that. But the board makes my decision on when we give money out for contracts. So this he said, she said, goes back and forth. It's, I really take it a grain of salt when they start saying things out there. Because you guys know we went through this a long time ago about who makes the final decision. So, anyway, but I'm just supportive of giving them the COA, just from my standpoint. You guys make the last call, but I just think that we need their assistance with our fire protection, period.
All right.
Well,
Any further discussion?
yeah, well, just one last comment, and I think this is somewhat to Matt's point. If we agree to give them the money this year, we're going to be in the same position next year arguing about the final payment. Even though it is the final payment, it's still quite a bit of money. So I think that steps need to be taken with a joint meeting, or at least communication with the council, Mr. Coonrod, the mayor, or whatever, to say, look, you've got to have some skin in this game. We're spending all of this money to provide superior fire protection above and beyond the agreement, and you need to give us this final payment, or agree to relax the final payment from us. So that discussion needs to start soon. We're running out of time to get that done now, obviously, but I agree with Matt. It's got to end. I mean, we're spending a lot of money that we have and some we don't have.
And the council has nothing to do with this.
Well, of course.
It's a BPW.
I know.
So it's the mayor and his two appointees. So that's kind of where that stands. And I'll tell you right now, it's going to come back up again next year to
Of
give
course it
them
is.
whatever.
Why wouldn't it?
And
Because there's a legal agreement.
Right.
I don't know, but again, from my standpoint, unless we want to start our own department, which we know that's not the way to go,
No, we're not
because
gonna
do
of
that.
what we would tax
That's
people for that.
insane.
So it's
That
kind
would be
of,
so petty.
we're kind of hooked in a way, from my standpoint, unless one of these two people here have an idea. I sure don't know.
No, I'm not ready yet. I want to keep
Okay,
talking about
go ahead,
this.
go ahead.
Can it be reworded?
Yeah, can we just reword it and say we agree to this year, we'll continue discussion?
For next year.
Right. And then I think it's time that we sit down with some of them and talk about this.
And I want to see, or pose the question, Brian, if you don't mind, tell them the board wants to see this contract that we know they can't produce.
Let's ask Doug while he's here. So the point I made was, and I don't think there's a contract.
Or the
I don't
agreement.
know where the COIT distribution agreement originated. Or was it just discussion, just executive discussion, or related to the 2012 annexation?
I think it was just a discussion, and, well, I'll tell you what, Angie, because Angie was involved in that, on how we came about doing that, on the
Thank you.
fire code.
So, as you all know, Crow has produced the COA calculation for many years, where we allocate the COA to each of the funds. When the city first approached the township and requested those one-time payments, probably, was it 2 years ago, was the first one-time payment? Outside of the contract amount?
No, we started in 2012.
So 2012, they came to us and requested additional funds. We sat down with Mr. Cunard and his team to have a discussion on how that COLA calculation was being derived. He wanted to make sure that when I do my COLA calculation, that the maximum amount that should be allocated to the city of Carmel due to their choice to annex Southwest Clay was continuing to go to Carmel. He had come up with an argument that when Carmel annexed Southwest Clay, they annexed it over 25% per year. They agreed to provide 100% services year one, yet it was their choice to only tax over time, and that they would really appreciate those funds to help pay for the services. Because of that, he looked at the COLA calculation and looked at how COLA is calculated. COLA is calculated based on your prior year levy and the prior year's COLA calculation. So you're always working from arrears looking back. And they thought that because of the fact that the township was still receiving COLA dollars that could have been allocated to the fire fund for the Southwest Clay, that they feel that that share should go to the city of Carmel. We sat down across the table in the township trustee's office and agreed to a calculation. We never agreed to a distribution. We never agreed to future distribution. We came up and agreed to, here's a model on when we're calculating future COIT, that we would look at a weighted average approach. We went back and forth on what that weighted average and what year that would actually begin. We had a difference of opinion and worked through that on which year to actually include in that base calculation. We argued based on the initial issuance of the park bonds. We came to a conclusion, met in the middle, and said, yeah, this makes sense from a calculation standpoint. So that's really where the discussion of the Southwest Clay conversation came to, is just how we calculate how we calculate COIT, how he looked to do it, and then moving forward, okay, this methodology makes sense. We both understand the methodology. Both firms were agreed to that, and we moved on. That's kind of how the 2012 Southwest Clay conversation got brought into it, just on how they had looked at funds and what they thought was owed to them.
So they don't have anything that says we're owed this on paper?
And that was never a discussion point. The whole discussion of Mr. Cunard and I meeting was simply for methodology. He disagreed with what I was doing. I disagreed with his calculations. He and I said, okay, let's just get in a room together because going back and forth isn't working out. Let's get in the same room and have the discussion so we can understand each other's points. And all that was the methodology discussion of two
But no
accounting
minutes.
consulting firms.
Nothing was written down about this whole conversation.
Well, it may have been the conversation.
Yeah, there was
Yeah.
they put together a formula. I mean, this was all drawn out.
No,
It's
but
a lot into it that they spent time working on.
But it was just an informal discussion on methodology. There was never an agreement of calculation. And I have emails that I would have sent to him prior to that saying, we agreed to calculation and methodology. However, this in no way assures that there will be funds distributed from this calculation going forward. This was a one-time discussion just on methodology, and that was it.
So the million-dollar question is there a binding contract that says we have to pay them $352,000 this year?
No.
There's no binding
No,
agreement.
The odd, and again, I've not been a fan of this from the start, but you're actually at the 11th hour in December executing a contract that applies to all of 2015. And that's been going on for some time.
Right. Which is
And-
good for us because we gain interest on our money.
That's true. Maybe that's the program.
Yeah.
So I'm just, okay. So I'm contacting my assistant to see if she can remotely prepare a revised contract, 'cause this has to be delivered tomorrow morning. A revised contract that eliminates the last sentence of section 13, which says the city and the township acknowledge that COIT distributions related to 2012 Southwest Clay will discontinue after the 2016 fire contract. Just eliminating that sentence. So eliminating the inference, and it has an inference if the language is included, that there will be another payment next year. Okay?
Take that out.
And just go silent as prior contracts have. Now, why do I have to contact my assistant? Because there's language on the next page, on the signature page, right, which is the execution copies here. So she just indicated she believes she could do so. So if you desired to adopt the contract with the 352-816, but without the language of the next sentence, I could deliver an executed agreement tomorrow that had that, the contract would appear to have been adopted in that fashion.
We need new language in what we're voting on now?
No,
Okay.
you would just, when you're ready, move to, again, you're the policymakers, so, and I'm just a scrivener here. If and when you're ready to adopt the revised contract, you would move ordinance 25, or resolution 2015-1502, and just add to that with the last sentence orally, the last sentence of section 13 removed from the contract presented.
So our question's on the table, so we need to vote our current motion down and re-bring it up.
Well, actually, we need to amend the current motion, right?
Is that,
Yeah.
is that
Is that what we do?
Yeah.
And I want to make sure I get all my questions out before we vote on this.
Okay.
So we're amending this rather than adopting a new one?
You just said make a motion, so I presume
Right.
your motion was to adopt resolution 2015-12-1502.
Accurate.
And if you just add deletion of the last sentence of section 13, and
So January, sometime in January, then Doug, you're going to write a check for $352,816. And Brian, I guess what I would like, when you deliver or convey or whatever, I don't, the comment about doing away or having us, that doesn't affect me at all. I'm not fazed one bit about self-performing fire service. I'm not, because the minds in this room, we can do it. But we also have on the table a maintenance center that does not need to be built. That was the request of the firemen. That can be eliminated like that. I just want it to be conveyed that
I don't know that the building can be eliminated like that, because I think you're going to hear in a bit that it's substantially underway.
and it can be left in ruins. And I mean that's, or the city can kick in and say, listen, we want to finish this, and that's when we go to the city council. Here's what you've done. Here's what your board of works has done to us. Now it's time for you as a city council to help us out and finish this building, if that's what it comes to. But anyway, again, we're doing this because we don't want to fight. We're doing this because we know the city's in a budget. I don't want there to be any inference or thought or anything that we were manipulated into doing this or scared into doing this or any other reason into doing this. It's just logic, and because the city's in the situation it is, they need a check, and they're going to get it in January. And we can start having a discussion about the 2016 as soon as
Right away.
Right away. And that's where our leverage is, I believe. Listen, we gave you the charity 352 for 2015. If you want these things in your new fire training garage, then you're going to need to not let us pay, or we'll just build a shell of a building and walk on down the road. And your fire department budget can pay to put the lifts in and the fine finishes and everything else. I know it's not what you want to hear, John, but
Do we have a feel for what the payment would be next year if we were to pay, with a final payment?
You mean for the COIT?
yeah.
Well, it depends on who you talk to.
Well, I'd rather talk to Angie than,
Well, no, I'm talking about Kirk Coonrod for
I know,
us.
I know.
That's right.
Yeah,
No,
okay.
we have not calculated what a future co-op payment would look like. I believe it was around 320 to 330. Was that, Doug, was quoted from the city's
Well, the first time you told me it was
consultant?
225, and now it's up to 325, so.
So, and normally what we would do is we are in the position now to take the first 16 co-op, because co-op is based on prior year. You need to go to a point where things are actually certified and you make the calculation. So it's a little premature to look at what it would be in 2016 until we actually get the 2016 budget completed by the DLGF for all the units. Then we'd be able to start calculating where we think that would be. So based on what we're looking at, I would expect it to be, again, lower. Just to give you guys some information, Doug and I did pull 2014 excess or one-time co-op payment was $513, $482.90. 2015 ask is $352, $816. The contract amount for 2014 was $686,517. Contract for 15 is $697,803. So I do want to provide that for just context, so you all can see kind of where you were last year, where's 15. I would expect 16, of course, the AV is around the same. We're not seeing many shifts in the percentage of AV. That should be held constant. Really becomes that COA value.
May I ask a question? I mean, Angie, how is that, and I know there's a methodology, but what does that declining payment, 525, 352, 2 something, what does that really represent?
It looks like just the weighted average over the percent of the levy over the total. In addition, I think at some point, they may have requested additional funds that we agreed to provide to them, because, this is above and beyond, what we would calculate from the fire fund, from the debt service. So this really isn't in necessarily the calculation as to what necessarily is owed. We look at, there was agreed to back in 2012, we looked at what percentage the AV Southwest Clay was of Clay Township. We used that basis for the assessed valuation to calculate what that excess payment is, under the assumption that the assessed valuation as a percentage of the whole for that area would not change. So really, you're looking at that allocation basis on where that's coming from. And we could look again at the 2015 of the 352, but we did not, Mr. Cooner and I did not sit down and agree to a value or calculation of the 352. That's really just a value that they came to the township and are now requesting.
I'd still ask to see, even knowing they don't have it, the agreement where, show us something that says we agreed to give it to you, but.
I'm hoping to sow peace, honestly, and I'm not sure that does that.
No,
So,
I think-
and I want to be your advocate also, right? I mean, that is my job.
There's nothing personal here. I mean, I've
I
said
know.
that 3 weeks ago.
Right.
This was not a personal move. What frustrates me is that anybody with a brain on the street would see $6.5 million versus $352,000. And I just, that's what blows my mind. It just, I cannot wrap my head around it.
Well, what I think that I've heard, excuse me, heard you say that I think is very appropriate is to convey the message that if the board is willing to do this for this contract, to convey that there was a lot of discussion that next year's payment should not be counted on and should be discussed early, not mid-December. So one of the points the mayor made was that if we had known this earlier, and again,
It's such,
Oh, come on.
I know. But given the headlines from a couple of days ago, it
Yeah.
made sense to me. Now they found a solution. But his comment was, had they had some indication that it wasn't going to be the situation 6 months ago, they could have planned for it. So I think in response to that, it's time to send the message that, hey, by the way, this, if the board decides to do it, this one's done, but 2016, you shouldn't count on that because the board wanted to discuss it before there was any further agreement in that regard.
And I honestly, I can put myself in the mayor's shoes on this, and that's why I just wonder, this isn't personal. I can see where, and maybe we should have had a larger voice at the budget workshops, but I'm not sure we had considered all this.
This was
Let me say something here, because it's all pointing back to me and Kurt Coonrod, okay? And the bottom line here on this is, Kurt was convinced that we should give them the money, okay? And I said, Kurt, that's fine with me, but I'll tell you that I don't make that decision. I know. I said, the board makes that decision, and I'm not telling you, it's not looking good. So we did talk about it in the summer, but it just kept festering until now, okay? So we did talk about it, but, it comes down to, look, if you want fire protection, this is what we have to do.
Frankly,
Okay, so from my standpoint, we have been talking about it, but maybe now we bring in their attorney and our accountant and their accountant, and they can sit down and say, okay, where's this going to end at? When's this going to end?
Well, I think that discussion needs to start sooner rather than later. I mean, as soon as we get through the new year and there's a new council, let's get this thing rocking.
Well, and I don't care what Kurt Coonrod has to say. He's an employee of the city of Carmel. And the people that are making the decision
Are the
are
elected
James
officials.
Brainerd, Mary Ann Burke, and Lori Watson. We ready? I'm ready. I'm done.
So what do you need from us right now, Brian?
So if the board decides to proceed, if it's the board's will to proceed, I would clarify the motion that was made for discussion is to adopt Resolution 2015-12-1502, and I believe you've stated with the last sentence of Section 13 removed
Okay, so
from the
we need,
contract.
So,
we need an amendment to the motion that's on the table to adopt the resolution, number one.
To remove the last sentence from the contract
All right.
in Section 13.
So, Madam Chairman, I would like to make a motion to amend the previous motion, which was the adoption of resolution number 2015-12-15-02, to now strike the last sentence of Section 13. That's my new motion.
Is there a second?
second?
Any discussion on that? He seconded.
Okay. Do you have discussion, Matt?
No.
Okay, so now,
So now you're
We need to
voting
call
on
the question.
amending the motion,
we're voting on amending the motion.
right? So you should vote on that now.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
Yeah.
You said aye.
I
Correct.
prefer, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, the motion is on the table. It's the resolution 2015-12-1502, and the contract, it approves the contract with the last sentence of Section 13 removed, but with the $352,816 in it.
Which I moved, Paul seconded. So
Right.
you can call for it.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passed.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you to sign the execution copies that I have and pledge to you that when I get home, my assistant has indicated she has duplicated this contract with the signature page inclusive of the language that, it went to the last page, but eliminate, I will confirm that the Section 13 last sentence is removed. And that's what will be delivered to the Board of Works tomorrow with a firm, no, I'm not going to have Tom DeRue do anything because he doesn't know any of the players. I will email, okay? I will email probably this evening and inform the mayor, others involved in the discussion about your all's discussion.
This was not contentious, I don't believe.
No.
I think it was productive.
It was a long discussion
Well,
and
I
productive.
think, I agree with you, Matt, and I think the productivity is yet to be seen. But I think, to Mary's point, the sooner we get with the new council and the decision makers and the influencers on this and clear it up, the better.
Right.
And it's the Department of Public Works people.
And we came through for them in the 11th hour and signed it so they can get their money first of the year, and we can hash out the rest later.
And I'll make it very clear, it
Right.
wasn't your first choice. All right?
Oh, make sure.
Okay,
Don't
now-
worry, I
now
will.
that That's dead. I have a question for both you and Angie. I just want to insert this. It's not an action item, but it kind of relates to this. Monday in the Star, there's a bill about redistribution of COA money, which would indicate that we might get some more, maybe? Did I read it right? I didn't quite understand the article.
You may be referring to, I think one of the legislators has put in proposed legislation for local street highway funds, where they were looking at redistributing. A portion of the COA is withheld at the state, so until it exceeds 150%, they distribute that to the locals. So that additional cushion is held at the state in their funds. There's a proposal on the table that says, okay, why don't we look at actually distributing that out to local units to be used specifically for local road and street needs.
Which would include, it would also include trails and paths and other forms of infrastructure.
It may, I think you're going to see additional proposals on the table where I think what I've seen and what I've heard from a lot of other local units is that's our funds anyway. we'd like to have those funds without the restrictions to use these for transportation. Let us decide how to reallocate our funds. So I don't think that's probably going to be the only proposal. This is probably Mr. Bosma's wheelhouse more than mine, but
I was
that's
just-
what
I bring
that's
it-
what you're
I
seeing.
bring it up because I'm thinking, and an awesome job on selling those bonds for such a low rate, but to jumpstart catching back up with the parks, what we took from the parks,
Right.
this might be a good way to insert some money back in there, is what I was thinking.
Yeah, and you could drive a hole through the requirement that it, on the summary that I received, you could drive a hole through the requirement that it goes to road funding, because it was road funding or the rainy day fund. Any lawyer worth his salt that has advised municipalities or political subdivisions,
To put it in the rainy day fund.
Yeah.
as I have for you all, when you did your rainy day fund years ago, it can be used for any legal purpose that is a responsibility for the township. So,
So there might be some, I mean, who knows what happens in the next session, but there might be opportunity for the township to receive a little more money than anticipated in coming years. Is that a possibility?
It will be interesting because we don't receive motor vehicle highway or local road and street funds. So it'll be interesting to see how they reallocate that and how it's tied to different uses. So that's something I think is a great idea to bring up, Matt. Something we can look at and keep tracking to see how those funds will be released. And something, Brian, for us to look at too, on knowing that the township doesn't receive funding for local road and street and MVH, to make sure that if there is a reallocation of those funds out to units, that those that even don't have transportation needs still are getting that excess that's being held by the state that's actually due to other units. So that'll be an
and
interesting.
It's their money already.
Yes.
It's just being held back by the
Yep.
state as a cushion.
And without putting you in a position, would it be worth us, I mean, is it enough money, it'd be worth us engaging a lobbyist to help us with that cause, or?
No.
Okay.
So we'll continue, and I think Mr. Brosman will probably be able to give quite a few updates throughout the year, just as new bills come across, which I expect we'll probably see a
lot.
couple on that, yeah.
Okay, thank you. So that's promising news, maybe. Hopefully.
Move on, or we have more discussion on these? Okay. We have item D, which is our add-on tonight, resolution number 2015-12-15-03. Doug?
It's just our, two-year investment policy that we have to, that you have to approve every 2 years. And that's all it is. And it allows us to wire money for our bond payments for the park, Central Park, and the fire stations.
Also allows you to purchase certificates of deposit.
Yeah, and certificates of deposit. Just about anything in investments that's covered in the law here. And we have to get your approval.
May I have a
Since you're
motion?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any discussion? Matt, Paul, nothing? All right, I'm going to call for the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any dissenting votes? No. Information items, Doug, fire contract update.
I have John Barbie with me today to update us on the fire station construction.
Now that you sat through all this.
Good evening, Board. Well, I do have some positive news. We have permits for all projects. We have nothing holding us up on that front. You may have heard Station 43, the department moved in last week. There are some punch items that
When are they
they're
gonna cook us
living
dinner is
through.
my
but
question.
yeah, exactly. The stove is ready. The exercise room is going to tail behind for them about 4 weeks before we get that turned over to them. If you remember, we had a gas line relocation issue, and we didn't build it where originally planned, but in the end, I think everybody's going to be happy with how it turned out and be a good space for them compared to what they had before. But they're living there, and they are operating out of the station today. Station 44, if you haven't driven by recently, there is sticks of steel standing up in the air. We're expecting to have trusses go up on the upper level next week, and that will really start to shape the structure. And then we were hoping this week to get some slabs in. Rains yesterday and today didn't really help that. And we're having a couple cold days here coming, but this unseasonal December weather we're having with 50s and 60-degree forecast next week We're going to look at getting those slabs in next week and then start framing the exterior walls. So things are moving along there well. And then the hidden project, the maintenance and training facility at 106th and Gray, we do have all of the footings in there. The metal building has been delivered, and any day, could be yet this week, definitely by Monday, their steel erector will be there and that structure will start to go up. But we have gotten out of all of our unforeseen conditions with the site and soil that we were worried about. Now the building pad is in place. It has turned into a little bit of a muddy mess driving the trucks across there. There's a lot of dirt that we're displacing on site so that we didn't have to go through the expense of hauling it away. But that's progressing on schedule, and that building will go up relatively quick. By the end of January, it should be up with skin on it. And then every day we're meeting, working with Doug and the fire department on still looking at, ways we can save and conserve or do something a little different, even though we're charging forward with construction. But the schedule looks good. I'm thinking, depending on some of the interior build out of the training facility, the training and Station 44 will probably be finishing in 2016 around the same time, June and July time frame.
Good.
Any questions?
Thanks,
Any
John.
questions?
Thanks for keeping your nose to the grindstone.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Doug, board and trustees to sign the annual nepotism policy?
No.
No, Chair.
Oh, I skipped, I'm sorry.
Yeah, just,
Right.
that's fine, but I just give you guys this, you don't need to do anything with it, it's on the minor transfers that we make, and I just keep you guys updated on our budget and stuff. So that's why you've got that. Now you can go to the financial.
Yeah, financial questions from the board, any? Matt, Paul?
No.
We're fine with that. Board comments? Matt?
No, just conveying
What we've talked about.
I'm done commenting.
I think very interesting discussion. Matt's point, very fair. It's not personal, it's business and it's logic. And the last thing we would ever undertake would be to put anybody in jeopardy in terms of safety. So that's not even a consideration. But we do need to have a frank discussion with City Council, the mayor, Mr. Coonrod, Board of Public Works, whomever, as early as possible so that we can explain to them what our reasoning is. Fair is fair. Last thing I would say is Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to everybody, and I hope we have another very productive year as a board and with our trustee and Angie and Brian and Hal.
I'd just like to thank you for all the work that goes into these discussions. You're very thoughtful, both of you, in coming up with what your thoughts are, and it's really easy to work with both of you, and I thank you for that. I'm real proud to be a member of this board, and I appreciate all that you do, Angie, and you, my goodness sakes, look at these fire stations. And I've been out with Chief Orby, and I tell you, I've never met anybody like him who can take an idea and turn things around so that he saves money. And maybe if we pull this down, it's very exciting. I know the community is talking about the fact that things are happening, so we appreciate all your efforts too. Merry Christmas. Doug?
You got the 2016 board meetings in front of you. Our next meeting is January 5th, which is our organizational meeting. Will basically be that. And I'll have a sheet on our appointment to the Waste District that day also. So it'll be a short meeting though, because you guys will need to make who the new officers are and everything. I gave it to you today, so you have some time to look it over. And if I basically taken the fourth Tuesday of every month, except for a few, that if you need, that you're not going to be here, maybe we need to change it to the third week or second week, that's fine. If you would just look it over, if I don't hear from you by the January 5th meeting, then this will be the gospel. The other thing is, the last thing will be that you sign your annual nepotism policy, but you don't have to do anything, you don't have to vote or whatever, you just need to sign it, okay? And that's it.
Okay, may I have a motion for adjournment, please?
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We're finished.